At the very beginning, we see our main character named Kim Minwoo who has just woken up. Now he looks very unhappy with himself because he slept through his work due to the fact that he played League of Legends all night. He realizes that he really overslept, which is why he begins to get ready in a hurry. After some time, Kim Minwoo already found himself on the train, which he managed to get on at the last moment. Already on the train, the main character began to look around and noticed an unoccupied seat. Kim Minwoo begins to be very happy because he hasn't seen any empty seats for a long time and they took him here. And this place was taken by some gloomy old stump who now smiles looking into the guy's eyes. The main character decided not to argue with this man, so he resigned himself and simply decided to stand. Now he began to doubt whether he really took the right train line. Then the main character decided to reach into his inner jacket pocket and then felt something right there. He discovered something completely unusual there and was very surprised by it. He looks at this object and tries to understand what it is. It turned out that this was some kind of device with a big button, and the guy in the middle continued to look at this thing. Kim Minwoo is already beginning to assume that this is a bullet from the air conditioner, then he begins to think that it is from the TV. Nevertheless, the main character's curiosity rose up, and not knowing what this button does, he decided to simply press it. After one moment, someone decided to address our main character, calling him Grandpa. It turns out that it was the same old man who took the place from this guy, and now Kim has no idea what's going on. Kim Minwoo doesn't understand what's wrong with this old man, because he, being 20 years older than the guy, calls him Grandpa. However, the guy in the suit doesn't care anymore. He understands that now there's finally a seat free so he can sit down. The course of events is already being transferred to the main character's work. He is now being scolded for being late and laughing in his face. Kim Minwoo asks the head of the department for forgiveness, but she is still very angry with him and advises the guy to come to his senses and pull himself together. At this moment, Kim Minwoo is already beginning to feel extreme shame because his boss began to scold him right in front of the newcomers. We see the events that happened a couple of years ago. Boss Choi Suna came to work on her first day. Their boss listened to her and decided to turn to the main character so that he would teach her and show her what was here and how it worked. But the guy was embarrassed. You can see how on her very first day, Choi Songa is ready to work hard. She is so intrigued that she is lost. Kim Minwoo wants to check with this girl whether she is safe and then decides to extend his cold drink to her so that she will put it to herself. However, the girl just started drinking it. Kim Minwoo at that moment makes it clear to her that he wanted her to put it to her forehead. The main character got a job in the spring and the dream came in the fall. They were both almost the same age and are still working. They coped with all tasks together through joint events and overtime work. These two spent the entire first year shoulder to shoulder. They received a promotion, and at the same time their relationship with each other changed. Then we see a scene where the main character and this girl are bullied in a very crowded elevator where other workers have gathered. Choi Suna approaches Kim Minwoo about a recent incident. The main character suddenly immediately became interested in what she was talking about. At that moment, someone jerked behind the girl and in this way touched her, causing her to get very close to Kim Minwoo and remain dissatisfied after this. Then it turned out that large cannonballs ran straight into our main character, who could not budge due to being pressed against the wall. Kim Minwoo understands that the person in front of him is pressed against him with his whole body. The guy understands that it's too rough in the elevator, but he's still embarrassed. In response to this, the girl became a little upset and blushed all over, and out of embarrassment, after all, she just wanted to talk, and such an unpleasant incident happened. Afterwards, she silently decides to leave Kim Minwoo, and he begins to think that he was simply making a bad joke, and so he decides to remind her that she wanted to say something. Of course, the girl's whole mood dropped. She heard a reminder from the guy and tells him what she wanted to say so that he would no longer approach her. These words hurt poor Minva. He was the only one in the elevator, in tears, and realized that she had again begun to despise him. Then we again see our main character, who right now is sitting in his office and typing at the computer, wanting to earn money for himself. The guy is already used to overtime because he doesn't have time to complete the work on time, but there is something he wants to talk about. He works better alone, but there is a feeling that Choi Song-na is specially called into special duty to watch him. Kim thinks that she likes him. The girl felt this fool's gaze on her, and then started shouting at him and telling him to work because the guy is often distracted. Choi Sona decides to approach the guy because she became curious about what he was doing on the computer. Realizing this, the guy got very nervous and asked not to look. Unexpectedly for himself, the main hero felt as if the chair under him was starting to break. He was now at a loss and did not understand what would happen. It turned out that the chair had actually reached the end of its life, so it broke right under Kim Minwoo, causing him to fall to the floor and drop the button. The girl wondered if he was okay. At that moment, Choi Suna turned her attention to something unusual. The expression on the main character's face shows how he slightly tensed and wanted to find out what she was looking at. It turned out that she found the same button that fell out of Kim Min-woo's pocket when he fell to the ground. She doesn't understand what it is and thinks that it's some kind of toy. This girl is a very well-mannered person, so she is not going to keep someone else's thing in her hands without permission, and asks the guy to ask if she wants to know if it is his. The main character is a little worried because his hands even started to shake. He says that this thing belongs to him, and at that moment he accidentally pressed the button. After pressing the button, something strange began to happen to the girl. She does not understand what kind of strange feeling she is experiencing now. Unexpectedly, she began to worry quite a lot about Kim Min-woo. She approached Nemyu and wants to know how he feels. The guy himself cannot understand what is happening to her, decides to answer her question by saying that everything is fine with him. She remembers how he fell loudly. Then the girl began to wonder if everything was okay with the main character's head, because he hit it pretty hard. The guy still doesn't understand what's wrong. Choi Sun-ah stood on top of the main character and showed him a gorgeous look. The guy understands that if this continues, this could all end very badly. The main character doesn't like the way this girl behaves at all, so he decides to push her away from him and asks her to stop her unusual actions. However, Kim Min-woo couldn't completely get rid of Choi Sung-ah and noticed that his Bugatti was already wanting to go into the garage and he didn't like it. The girl noticed this guy's Bugatti, and the main character tries to justify himself to her by saying that this is not what she is thinking about right now. Choi Suna is already blushing all over, and she begins to think that the main character wants to play with her a little. She says that she should have just told her about it. Then the blue-haired girl begins to get rid of excess rags and, looking at the main character with bright eyes, tells him that she can help. Kim Min-woo looks at this picture in front of him and doesn't understand what's happening now. He sees her behavior and doesn't understand what happened to her. After some time, Choi Suna begins to touch the main character's Bugatti, and he doesn't even know how to react to it. Kim Min-woo doesn't understand what's happening and why she's doing this to him. He can't find an answer to his question and doesn't understand what she's trying to achieve. The girl noticed a strange expression on the face of our main character, which is why she decides to clarify what is happening to him. At this moment, the guy realized something. It seems to Kim Min-woo that this is all a pathetic attempt by his management to deceive him, and right now the girl is just bluffing to test him. However, the main character still cannot understand why Choi Suna decided to get rid of extra rags right in front of him and wants to ride a Bugatti. The guy still thinks that she just wants to deceive him, and the girl already thinks he's strange. At this moment, it seems to Kim that this is a prank and there is a hidden camera somewhere. It seems to our main character that the girl wants to record on camera how bad the guy will behave so that later she can simply fire him. Choi Sung-ah is becoming more and more convinced that something strange is happening to the guy. Then she wants to clarify with him what is really happening, and then the guy remembered something. The main character remembers how Choi Sung-ah saw his Bugatti, which is why she will blackmail him in the future by making him to blame for all the problems. Kim Min-woo is very worried that the very next day after all this, they will simply hire him and fire him, so he stood up in front of the girl and wants to say something. He decided to talk to her, and remembers that for the last 8 years they have been quite close to each other. He believes that this is the reason why they stayed in the office. Sitting down on a chair, the main character begins to smile madly, looking into the eyes of this girl. He remembers that they are colleagues and wants to say something else. He thinks that this should stop her and he won't fall for it anymore. He doesn't know exactly where the camera is, but she's still writing. Now maybe only his back will be visible. The main character continued to sit calmly in his chair and silently smile, thinking that he had already won and passed the test, and now no one would fire him. But Choi Sun-ah approached him. Having touched the Bugatti, she begins to look into his eyes and says that he himself wants this, and she sees it perfectly in him. And then Kim Min-woo fell into complete bewilderment. He was already starting to worry and did not understand why the girl decided to continue her business, because he seemed to have directly given his answer about this. Even if this is all just a regular prank on her part, the main character could not have expected that she would decide to go so far. The main character believes that the girl is already going overboard and collecting material for blackmailing him, but she no longer cares about anything, and she wants to get into the showroom of his Bugatti. After this, the guy decides to address this girl by name. She became curious about what he wanted to tell her this time, and she began to listen to him carefully. Unexpectedly for herself, Choi Suna heard our main character inviting her to sit in the interior of his Bugatti and wanting to know her opinion on this matter. The main character believes that she definitely cannot do this and is afraid. Seeing her unusual expression on her face, it seems to him that she is not going to do this. You can see how Choi Sung-ah is still thinking about what to do, because before that she had never sat in a Bugatti showroom, after which she remembers that they have been together for 8 years. so it's possible. And then suddenly the girl remembers that they have been together for 8 years, and it seems strange to her that she is going to sit in his salon right now. The main character believes that the girl is already beginning to come to her senses, but this is exactly what he needs, and he asks not to do this if he doesn't want to. She heard what the guy was talking about, and then looked him in the eyes and made it clear that she was ready to do it if he wanted it so badly. The main character was very surprised that the girl sat in his salon so abruptly. He understands that it was enough for him to say that they are old colleagues. We see a moment from the past of the main character, as Choi Song-ah sits with him at the same table, and they eat everything together. But Song-ah seems to be eating for two. She says that it infuriates her that they don't give her a premium for lunches, so she will spend their money from the badge to the maximum, and this greatly surprises Kim Min-woo. Choi Suna asks the guy not to turn the tables on her, because if suddenly the accounting department starts doing something, it won't be good, and the guy wonders what exactly could happen. Having fed the main character from her hand, the girl tells him that they are now colleagues, and that is why they keep each other's secret secret. The main character remembers how she said this word, or at least they were supposed to become colleagues. We also see how the girl wipes his mouth with a handkerchief. Kim Min-woo remembers how this girl just recently was very cheerful and friendly, and now it all ended in something like this. The guy is pleased that Choi Song-ah continues to sit calmly in the interior of his Bugatti, so he asks her to continue doing this. Then the main character makes it clear to the girl that his patience is already coming to an end, so she should know about it and be prepared. Choi Suna thinks that the guy might dirty the interior of his Bugatti, so she says that she can just solve this problem for him. After the volcanic eruption, the main character approached the girl and wants to ask her if she is okay, because it was all very unusual. Then Choi Song-ah suddenly begins to look at the main character's face and says that they are now like colleagues because they were able to conclude an agreement with each other. Suddenly, the girl noticed that the main character was ready to let her into the Bugatti salon again, and this surprised her very much. However, Choi Suna makes it clear that she is bored just sitting in the Bugatti salon, so she wants the main character to give her a test drive. At the most inopportune moment, the security guard of this place approaches them, who decided to look around before leaving the building. He wants to find out if anyone is left here. The main character heard his voice and, being frightened, says that he will finish work soon. The guard says that it's almost 1 in the morning and he doesn't know what he's doing here. It already seemed to the guard that Kim Min-woo didn't want to go home at all, but he said that he wanted to return as soon as possible and would do it very soon. Apparently, it's impossible to arrange a test drive now, so the main character holds out the rags towards the girl and asks her to use them. The main character was very scared that they were going to have fun right in the office. At that moment, he put the girl in a taxi and asks her to be careful. Kim Min-woo is already lying in his warm bed and remembering games in the office with Choi Suna, and he feels that his Bugatti wants even more such games.
Because of this, the main character is satisfied. Various unnecessary thoughts constantly pop into his head, because of which he simply cannot sleep.
The next day has already arrived, and we find out that the guy simply couldn't sleep. Now he doesn't even know how to look into the girl's eyes after all this. At the same moment, someone again addressed the main character with a very familiar voice, calling him grandfather. The guy wants to find out what happened this time. It turned out that this is the same old man from yesterday who recognized our main character and invites the guy to sit in his place. But Kim Min-woo refuses and wants to stand. But despite the guy's desire to stand on his feet, the old man insists that the young guy sit in his place. Seeing this, Kim Min-woo still decided to sit down so that they would leave him alone. After a moment, the main character continues to sit awkwardly in his place, and this old man is standing right in front of him. Now they are both silent and just waiting for their stop. Suddenly, the main character decided to look at his wristwatch and realized that yesterday he was driving at about the same time, and therefore might be late. At that moment, the grandfather realized something. Unexpectedly, the old stump decided to give the main character a strong slap in the face with his hand, not realizing how ashamed he was of some of his strange actions. It turned out that the old man thought that the guy stole his place. Kim Min-woo doesn't understand what we're talking about. He gave it up himself, and now he just took it away in this way. The main character believes that complete madness is going on here, and does not understand what is wrong with this strange old man. At the same moment, his button fell out of his pocket. Kim Min-woo realized that this is the same button from yesterday, so he decides to press it again to find out what will happen, and apparently it affected the old man. The previously angry old man suddenly became the kindest man in the world, after which he called the guy master and asked him to quickly sit down in his place so that he could rest. After getting off the train, the tired main character realizes that he no longer has any strength left for all this, because he is surrounded by so many different psychos. The main character picks up the button and realizes that he was thinking so much about yesterday's event that he even forgot about his button. Since he's late anyway, he wants to buy himself some breakfast and decides to order one kebab from the seller, but the seller doesn't seem to be himself. The seller realized that his regular client was standing in front of him, which is why she wanted to offer him a gift at the expense of the establishment. And this really lifted the guy's spirits. Suddenly, he discovered that he didn't have his wallet with him, so the seller decided to put this food on his account because she trusted him. The guy didn't even believe what was happening. Then this woman suddenly just took and threw a bottle of water on the guy's face. She doesn't understand how he even dares to ask for such a thing, since this is the first time they've seen each other. The guy, already in tears, eats his food, and looking at the button does not understand what the hell is constantly going on around him. This makes him sad. Yesterday, out of the blue, this same button appeared in his jacket pocket. He presses it, and strange things happen that he is unable to explain. Suddenly on the way, Kim Min-woo meets his colleague. This guy decides to say hello to the main character, and sees that he has just arrived and wishes him a good shift. The main character, purely for the sake of experimentation, decided to press the button in his hands, after which the previously kind man became evil and wishes that the guy would not return here if he was late again. Then the main character meets some thug on the way, who looks at him very menacingly and thinks that the guy is tired of his life. However, after Kim Min-woo pressed his button, this mountain of muscles immediately began to treat him very kindly and wanted to know how this guy was feeling. After this, the strong man decides to approach the man who spoke very inappropriately to Kim Min-woo and wishes that he would quickly ask for his forgiveness. And then Kim Min-woo finally realized what this button does. It reverses a person's attitude towards him, and it's simply amazing. With it, the main character can become a very successful person. He is already beginning to make various plans in this regard, imagining his very successful life. Kim Min-woo is now very glad that he became the owner of this wonderful button. He jumps with happiness and understands that his life will now definitely get better. But to great misfortune for the main character, it was at this moment that some courier decided to pass by on his moped and with his movements simply knocked the button off his hands. We can watch how this biker dropped Kim Min-woo's remote control on the ground and just picked it up and accidentally ran over it, and of course the guy won't like it. Then we see how our main character begins to look with great sadness at how his wonderful remote control broke into two parts. He understands that this has been happening to him all his life, so he should get used to it. He came to his work and asks for forgiveness for being late. This was also noticed by Choi Song-ah, who, as usual, looks very unhappy because the guy was late. Kim Min-woo also noticed her look and became embarrassed. The main character believes that since his button is now broken, this may mean that she is the same again and treats him very badly. However, instead of starting to say something, the girl began to write something on her sheet of paper, and it is not clear for what purpose. After she finished writing what she wanted, he collected this piece of paper and then threw it straight towards the main character. The guy did not expect this and wants to find out what is written there. Having opened the note that the girl sent him, he learns from her that he shouldn't have ended everything so abruptly, which is why she suggests continuing today. Kim Min-woo now looks very surprised because he thought that she would begin to treat him badly. But unexpectedly for him, everything happened completely the opposite. We can again watch Choi Song-ah, who right now, sitting at her computer, silently looks into Kim Min-woo's eyes, making it clear how much he cares for her. In turn, the main character himself is now very embarrassed. He doesn't understand why she remained like that, because his button has been broken for some time. Then he decides to look at his wristwatch and realizes that it is possible that the action of this button only works for a certain time. Taking all this into account, the main character believes that if he pressed this button last midnight, then he has time until midnight. The main character had been sitting on his chair for some time and was thinking about what to do next, after which he simply decided to get to his feet and approach the girl. A moment later, he is already standing next to her. The guy distracted Choi Song-ah from her work and understands that there may not be another chance like this, so he needs to take advantage. Having approached the girl close enough, the main character begins to whisper to her about what he wants to do now. This really surprised the girl. Nevertheless, she turned out to be willing and tells another employee that she and Kim Min-woo must meet a serious client and need him to convey this to the others. The employees do not understand why those two decided to leave their place of work together so abruptly, but one of them seems to think that they were just going out to have fun. However, it begins to seem to them that this cannot be, because these two usually do not even look at each other and as if they cannot tolerate each other. But still, one guy understands perfectly well that these two always behave like this. They are very strict in public, but in the end, they have fun in secret. Then we see how the main character and the girl continue to ride in their elevator and are simply silent. At this moment, the guy realizes that Choi Song-ah is his subordinate. Because of the action of his button, he will be interested to know how far she is ready to go. This is all provided that her superiors control her, but the action of the button still seems stronger, and the girl is even ready to leave her place of work. Kim Min-woo remembers how this girl always belittled him in front of others simply because she was given a promotion, and in retaliation for this, he is going to do something. After some time, we see how our main character brought this girl to a very expensive restaurant. She was very pleased with this because she did not expect such a penny. Then we see how they sit in a cafe and drink their drinks together. The guy is smiling at the moment because he believes that they are doing all this for her money. A moment later, we can already watch how these two sit in the cinema and watch the film and, of course, for Choi Soo-na's money. After the movie, the girl decides to tell the guy that he was quite interesting. Kim Min-woo realizes that this is not really a date and is more like a date with her. While the two were wandering along the street to avoid doing anything else, their attention was suddenly attracted by someone from behind, and they turned around to find out it was Kido. It turned out that it turns out to be one of their colleagues. Seeing them on the street during working hours, he thinks that today they are working outside. The girl became confused and said that they were meeting their client. However, the man was greatly surprised by such an answer. He jokingly decided to ask Choi Song if clients usually give him any snacks. He understood what was going on and promised not to talk about it. In fact, to him it looks like the guy deceived her to skip work. Meanwhile, Kim Min-woo remembers how he used his button on him yesterday. Our main hero also remembers the moment when that man humiliated him in their company. No matter how much he laughs at him outside of work, it still cannot be considered revenge. Kim Min-woo came up with a very brilliant idea. He believes that he can do it in front of all the people from their company, and apparently he will not miss his chance. Then we can watch two men who are about to get out of the elevator, and just at that moment they were about to end their conversation. At the same moment, they noticed Kim Min-woo and Choi Soo-na in front of them, and apparently did not expect to see them here. The main character and the girl immediately greeted them when they met. The man wants to clarify how things are going with sales these days, and whether everything is okay with it. Choi Song-ah says that they are walking on thin ice, and it is not easy to make sales. Kim Min-woo starts looking at the girl, and lets her know that the deal with their clients is not going well, but the guy thinks that this can only be for the better. Then the main character decides to touch the buns and suggests relaxing, so that things can begin to go at their slow pace in the future. The black-haired man also understands that they could lose this deal if they behave too aggressively, and somehow nervously the girl thought about it on the way, and understands that this is so. Next, Kim Min-woo begins to hint to Choi Soo-na that she should get rid of the extra rags now, but she is now a little worried and thinks that it would be better to do this in the next quarter. The black-haired man in front of her heard her start saying something and wants to clarify what exactly, but she tells the guy that she is communicating with herself. At the same moment, Kim Min-woo already begins to insist quite strongly that the blue-haired girl get rid of the extra rags, and it is clear that she herself wants this. The whole group of these people is already in the elevator. Two businessmen are talking about important points ahead, while behind them there is a leak in the fuel tank. Choi Soo-na begins to get very worried and decides to ask Kim Min-woo what she is going to do if the two of them are caught trying to start having fun. The elevator reached a certain floor. The doors opened and other people who also work in this company became visible. They saw their boss and said hello to her. Choi Soo-na learns from her colleagues that they are all going to lunch in a big group right now and invite her to take part in this. The girl thinks about the proposal. Taking advantage of the fact that there are a lot of people around, Kim Min-woo decides to take out his Cybertruck and drive it into the garage while no one sees it, and everyone is busy with their own business. A moment later, our main character parked his Cybertruck in the garage, and Choi Song-ah immediately understood this, although she did not expect such a trick. People around noticed the face of the blue-haired girl. They want to know if she's okay or not, and her face and voice suddenly became strange. But the girl says that she's cold. She says that she often sneezes during a conversation, and that's why her voice seems to break. The girl next to her says that this could be an epidemic, so you need to be careful. The blue-haired girl understands that there are too many people in this elevator, and someone can definitely notice what is happening around them right now, so she asks Kim Min-woo to stop. However, our main character does not intend to stop. He has long wanted to give Choi Song-ah a test drive on his Cybertruck and therefore will achieve his goal. At this moment, the girl with the telephone notices that the old elevator is not working properly again. She knows that it is very crowded here, but she is still scared to be here. Meanwhile, the same girl with the phone dropped her gadget at the wrong moment, and of course she will have to bend down to pick it up from the floor. The girl was upset that she dropped her phone because she bought it for herself quite recently, so she tries to pick it up, and Choi Song-ah understands that now anything can happen. After a moment, this girl reached for her phone. She doesn't look around and just decides to check her phone for scratches. Then suddenly she decided to turn her head a little to the side and unexpectedly discovered what her boss was doing at work. She continues to look at this boss and cannot understand what she is doing right now because it all looks quite strange.